Hi everybody, welcome to this episode where we talk about Victor Buono. So we ran into a couple technical problems.
Because we're amazing.
For the first portion, the card got full on an audio recorder, so there will be an audio change. Most of it's still fine. And for the second portion, at a certain point, I believe my camera battery ran out. So
you'll just have nothing to look at.
So you'll have nothing to look at. You won't be able to look at our pretty faces, but you'll still be able to hear us talk. And this is a video podcast after all.
Yes, and we'll fill it in with something so it's not just a black screen. But
we'll just put up the album picture.
There, even better.
That'll be fine. And as I think we should just put 3 tracks on this one to make up for it. And there's a lot of really good material. This is a great episode.
Which you will hear plenty about right now.
All right. We love you. Bye.
See you later.
My name is Victor Buono, and I'm fat. I've always been fat. I was a fat baby, and a fat boy, and now I'm a fat man. My acquaintances seldom use the word fat in my presence. They feel that it would be as unkind as using the word drunk in the presence of an alcoholic, and so they use other words. Plump. Stout. Chubby. Big bone. For a long time, they said it was baby fat and would burn off sometime in adolescence. But along about my 30th birthday, that particular theory bit the dust because it was evident that it had not burned off and was not about to burn off, and that any attempt to burn it off would constitute a public fire hazard. And I was happy to see that particular adolescence theory die anyway. At the age of 30, there's nothing more unsettling than the thought of a delayed attack of puberty. I'm resigned to being fat, and I wish people would stop using euphemisms, because I'm fat. I'm fat. That's all there is to that. You might think it etiquette to say that I am heavy set or just big bone. You want to bet I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. Portly, chubby, plump, and stout. Everyone's a diplomat. Why not let it all hang out and go ahead and call me fat? So please, don't think you're being kind by pretending to be blind. Just take a look at my physique. There's only one word, fat. And I'm not really unhappy being fat. There are times when it's inconvenient, such as when I'm trying to ladle myself into a theater seat, or trying to get all of me through a turnstile at one pass, or calling the lobby to tell them that the bed has broken again. I'm fat. It would be untruthful to deny it. It would also be impossible, because my failing is my flag. Some men can sin and conceal it. They're bandits, but no one gets wise. When I sin, my seams will reveal it. My crime is proclaimed by my size. Some folks are awful and lawful. They're loaded with loot, but who'd know it? I try to sneak in a waffle, and 5 minutes later, I show it. The fella who sells marijuana can walk down the street like a saint, and his sister may seem a Madonna, but the Vice Squad can prove that she ain't. Since pounds are like crimes, they can nail me on well over 300 counts and try me for each pound and jail me. I hope I'm not fined by the ounce. I'm guilty of imperfect diet. My weight shows I'm pizza pie prone. I know it's no good to deny it. Now, who wants to cast the first stone? Or to be a bit more blunt, although my belt may not be svelte, I've never felt disgusted. The kind of pot that I have got will never get me busted.
Go for it. Last look.
Last look. Were it not for this gentle and talented man, this album would not be. Be kind to him, Victor Buono.
He's got quite a sense to him, and especially now reading this after listening to it compared to the first time reading before, you really hear his voice come through in the words he writes.
Yeah,
because it's so characteristic of him. Once you know who he is.
I really like this. Let's start here. We're already recording. That was actually a pretty good way to walk in. Hi, welcome to the show. This is 44 minutes. Hopefully you've watched our other episodes. If not,
we'd really like you to.
We'd like you to. But stay here, watch this one, listen to this one, do whatever you need to because we're super into this one.
We're very excited. We have today a man by the name of Victor Buono and his album Heavy. And I believe we are both in agreement on the idea that this is a very underappreciated album because Victor Buono passed away very early before he could really...
He was in his 40s, right?
I believe he was 43 and he died of a heart attack. Yes, he was a very heavy man and he was proud of it. And that obviously contributed to his demise, but...
Well, it wasn't just him being heavy. It's the part where he openly admits to the fact that he was a serious binge eater too,
and he was completely okay with that.
Yeah, I can't fault him for any of that. But where do I start? This is another one of those ones that I got from this is part of my initial collection. This is part of the whatever 50 some odd records I have that I started with because they were given to me in bulk by an old family friend, and
it's spawned that desire to get started collecting.
To start collecting, but the problem is I just keep buying all these weird off records, and every once in a while I'll buy some music I like, but
you're getting more and more of these.
I'm getting
pieces
more
that
and
are
more
just
of
kind
these.
of they're unique to a certain kind of sense or time, and just now you're
Right.
exploring them.
Well, and it makes enough sense. This is, sadly, I think, definitely another really good example of wrong place, wrong time. We didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was because we just weren't old enough to really appreciate it. Victor Buono was an actor.
Best known for his role in the Batman 66 series as King Tut.
Probably best continually because he was a relatively well-known actor for his time, but seemed to be playing a lot of kind of character roles and things like that, which isn't bad. But I'm not sure I want to just say he's a character actor. Not that diminishes anything, but I don't know if that's accurate.
I would at least say it would contribute to him not being known as being a dynamic, progressive actor that stands the test of time the way
Despite
John
the fact that he probably could have been.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're heavy in Hollywood, doing movies in the 50s and 60s.
Typecasting abounds.
Yeah, you're... And this is something that he brings up in the record, too. For too long, we've all been cast as kind of... I don't know if it's jesters or jokers or something like that, but the idea being that, if you're fat, you have to be a jolly, fat, happy man. Or in his case, he actually played a lot of villains in,
Very true.
In suspense thrillers and things like that. But yeah, I actually despite having had this for a really long time, I didn't listen to this record at all
until now.
And I'm really happy I did, because this is an actor who clearly has this massive well of talent that extended beyond his acting abilities and probably assisted his acting abilities. He's from here. He's got a wonderful sense of comedic timing. He's a great writer.
His whole structure. Sorry to interrupt. His whole structure is basically comedic poetry. He's not telling jokes, and he's not sitting there being a comic playing the crowd. He is literally reading poetry, and it flows like poetry. And he has points where he breaks structure just to really emphasize a point and bring out his own personality to it. But the whole point is that it's very well timed and well written because it follows a very nice poetic flow.
But it comes out so natural too, and it's very conversational, which was kind of nice, because he's able to sneak in a lot of the rhythm and the timing while sounding like he's just talking. And like that's the thing. It's not forced. It comes out very naturally. I'm sure he rehearsed it, but this is probably an extension of the fact that he was a really good actor, and I'm kind of compelled to go out and seek his work.
Oh, absolutely.
This. Truthfully, I've only watched like a few episodes of the 1960s Batman series.
It is definitely worth spending the time, and especially now that they've released them all, because they've worked out the old contract arrangements, you can actually find all of them in collection. But before this, you actually had to go and get bootleg copies that people recorded from like cons and things.
Yeah.
So it's really quite a time now that something so iconic that was basically just brushed under the bed for a while is now widely available.
Hopefully some Batman fans will find this. Maybe we should tag that.
That would make sense.
This is a pandering moment. We're pandering to you, but please.
To be fair, it gives the Batman 66 fans care enough, because they are a fanatical bunch.
Yeah.
They would care enough to know more about the actors. I mean, everybody knows Cesar Romero and Burt Ward, and of course, why can't I think of his name right now?
Wait, who did he play?
Batman.
Adam West.
Adam West.
Adam Wee. Sorry, Family Guy. He was good on Family.
Adam West. But he's a character.
Yeah.
He's a real, true character, and he's very genuine to himself and to everybody around him.
This is bleedingly honest. The big thing we want to say is that with all of these, we want people to go out and find these records and listen to them, because it's fun. And it's fun to go, like, I hate to say that, like, to a point, there's a part of, like, record hunting for stuff like this that's born out of irony, but it's just, like, but all the same, look for, like, weird off things like this, not just to be like, hey, look at this weird record I found. That's sort of how I treated a lot of my collection, and now that I'm digging into it, like, I'm finding, here's this incredible comedy record. It's intelligent, it's well read, it's beautifully earnest, and it's Victor Buono largely, although that changes a bit on the second half as we were discussing, largely about him talking about his weight, and it's not as if a fat positivity and body positivity and resistance to fat shaming and the dialogue and the language that surrounds that is magically new. It's just that I think finally with the rise of social media, we get it where it's present and constant, and it's something we have to be aware of. Here's an example of someone who is, he's proud of himself, and he's proud of, because he knows that there's nothing to be ashamed of in being fat and being himself, and and that's his thing.
And I just thought of this right now. It kind of follows that same pattern as the Burlesque album, that it's approaching a subject in a way that is very ahead of its time, that it's very accepting and understanding of, yes, this is just the way we are. And he talks about his weight in that same way, that, he's going to eat because he likes to eat. And, nothing anybody says about that is really going to change him. And he's happy with who he is.
Yeah. But it does bring up, and this is something that I was talking about before. There is this, what people try, when people try to inject like a positive bit of dialogue, and I think his opening brings this in too. Mm-hmm. He basically starts with, hi, I'm Victor Buono, and I'm fat.
Yes.
And just and
I was a fat baby. I was a fat boy, and I'm a fat man.
Yeah, and the thing that he gets to about that is he sort of hates the way that like people dance around it, or they try to call him chubby, and that whole opening bit is the most brilliant construction, because it starts just him saying I'm fat, and this is who I am, and I don't like the way my friends try to dance around it and try to be delicate, and I think he compares it. They don't call me fat like they wouldn't say someone who drinks too much. Like they wouldn't call them an alcoholic, as if that would be offensive. But it's just, no, I'm fat. Don't call me, chubby or big boned or anything.
There's no point in beating around the bush.
Yeah, no. But he doesn't have a problem with it. That's the point. And it gets to this thing that's come up a lot, where people talk about, like, you know, they see a fat person who, like, you know, dresses well and looks well, and they're like, yeah, you rock that. And they see a person with no shame, and they'd be like, yeah, but missing the point where it's just like, no, but the whole point is that's their body shape. They don't have to feel ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed about.
Exactly.
It's not...
by talking about it, by addressing it and saying you are very well dressed for someone of your size, you have included that caveat.
I was trying to find the phrasing for that, and it's
the excitement as that finally came to the forefront.
Sorry,
of what we're working for.
My thoughts are infinitely more complex in my ability to string together the idea in a cohesive way, but that's what it is. It's adding in that caveat, it's adding in that extra step, and this openly, right from the front, you know, walks over and past that. And
it's almost the idea that if you take an insult, or if you take a word that you're sensitive to, and it applies to a lot of different subjects. I don't really want to go too far in depth of it, because being two white guys sitting here in front of a camera...
Well, I'm Jewish, you're Irish.
All right, that's close enough. that gives us plenty of diversity. But when you have a word, or you have a phrase, or you have something that gets people offended, you're giving the people who use that power, because you're reacting to it.
Right.
And by
all the same, fuck those people.
Absolutely. Fuck them for trying. But the key thing is that by doing what Victor Buono does, by starting it by saying, I'm fat, and nobody can ever use that against him.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing where, like, it's refreshing to hear jokes. It's sort of just like, I mean, I guess the comparison I can make, although I know having different body type is vastly different in a social setting than being of, like, a different ethnicity or a different religious background, but the whole being Jewish thing. There's one thing when there are people making jokes about Jews, and there's another thing when Jews make jokes about being Jewish. Mm-hmm. And here is that same sensibility. It's someone who talks about his weight, talks about his eating habits, talks about his health, talks about life and living and being a fat person, but he owns his perspective. He does not relinquish his perspective to the audience. He doesn't hand over that control. This is his thing, this is his dialogue, this is his moment to express everything he needs to, and it's fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah, and he openly acknowledges in the record that he hears people whisper, he hears the jokes kids make, he hears all these different things, but he just doesn't let that crack who he is. He's got a persona, and his persona is being a fat, intelligent man.
Yeah.
And he will always encompass that.
You know what? This is like I'm reminded of the Muhammad Ali record that we did.
Oh yeah.
The I'm the Greatest. Like, I mean, different thing, but it has that same thing where you're just like, fuck yeah. Like, that's what you're saying the whole time. You're laughing, but you're not laughing at
it's a different subject with the same attitude.
Exactly, and I love that.
Don't you just love having enough episodes that we can actually keep doing callbacks the whole time?
Yeah, no. It's really great. Again, you need to go back and listen to all the other shit we do. But I think what makes this so interesting is that it's the combination of, like, complex thought. It's mediations on beauty that are also very funny, and when I mean, you know, mediations on beauty, it's
there's a whole bit.
Actually, there's a whole bit specifically about beauty it's going to be. We've already decided one of the two bits that we're going to be putting on the episode for you guys to listen to, where he talks about, like, it was skinny poems for fat lovers, and
exactly.
he brings up the idea that, you know, I would call my lovers the things that I love.
And talking about, you know, pigeons and my little kitty cat or rabbits. And these are just animals that do strange things. Why wouldn't you say the thing that entices you the most?
Yeah, so he starts, like, referring to, you know, my brisket, my barbecue, and it's just like, it's great.
My
It's
mana
great.
a la mode.
As a person who is utterly obsessed with food, I'm just like, I want to be able to approach describing lovers in the same way. So actually, let's just talk about Victor Buono himself beyond his career as an actor, because we know so much about, or not so much, but we know enough about his persona. Victor Buono was fat. He was an actor. He was a good actor with a huge personality and a boisterous presence on screen. He was pretty openly gay.
Yes, again, very ahead of his time.
Big time playboy. And it's just like everything about it. I'm like, this guy is great.
It's everything that you wouldn't expect out of a time when people were very stuck. People talk about the 60s and things like that as, being the hippie generation and, forward thinking and everything, but you can look at the actual history of it, and there was still a lot of constriction. There was a lot of, violence.
Victor Buono wasn't really part of the. He wasn't on that end of the spectrum. He was on the mod kind of, or maybe not mod, but he was in Batman. So
yeah, but it's the same thing that he had an attitude that just really didn't gel with what was going on really in terms of current events. Like for people who weren't part of that accepted social norm.
Yeah.
Of basically fit white people.
Yeah.
Anybody who's not that was always going to be facing diversity. Fit white straight people.
Adversity.
Adversity. Thank you.
Facing diversity.
That is just awful.
But yeah, I like him. That's the big thing. I like him. I like what he's doing here. I like what he's presenting. I like this sort of image of it's a loving human portrait of himself, and that's amazing.
It's a portrait of acceptance, and I mean we kind of say it over and over again.
But it's not just acceptance. It's the idea that like he understands that he's this big personality and that he has a lot to share and that he knows how to do it so well. I have enough of a hard time accepting myself and my own personality. Have we held up the record and showed it to the...
I started with that.
Oh, we started with that. Sorry.
Obviously
we'll do that again. But that thing's really great. It doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're talking about. But anyway, I was saying it's like I have enough trouble like dealing with any kind of acceptance of myself, and I know a lot of people do. I always sort of admire anyone who has any sort of like extreme confidence in themselves, and not to the point where they become egotistical and crazy and awful. But again, that's why I like it in that same context as I did I Am the Greatest. But here he's a little bit more kind of he's down on himself enough, and I don't mean to phrase it necessarily in that way, but it's just like, no, he's aware of himself, and he's willing to make jokes at his own expense, but they're his jokes.
He loves himself enough that he can make fun of himself. Right.
And
and again harkens back to the I Am the Greatest album. There's that he's obviously very understanding of who he is, and that he has this certain kind of personality and level of confidence, but he's not afraid to dig at himself for it.
Right.
And it's a kind of personality that you don't see very often.
Yeah.
And I totally know what you mean when you come from the perspective of, it's hard to accept oneself, because I've been in that position, and I feel like I've worked towards a better positive self-image and understanding of myself, and it gets to that point where you have to learn to accept your faults with your successes, and it's really difficult for people to sit down with themselves and think, these are all the reasons why I'm not great, or why I'm not reasonable or attractive, and just say, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because we are surrounded by a society
because as soon as you come to terms with that, you can be like, okay, so that's over here. Oh wait, all the rest of this is left. I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, we come from a society that spends a lot of time talking about ways to change yourself, and even if you just look at it in a physical sense, it still comes with an underlying message of you should change. And especially when you look at things that are make these physical changes in order to feel better about yourself.
Right.
Because that's the suggestion of some really strong psychological issues. And our society kind of pushes those on people and are absolutely responsible for a lot of teenage psychological problems, a lot of body dysmorphia, bulimia, anorexia. All these things often come from outside influences exacerbating an issue. And a lot of it is, of course there's always medical solutions, taking pills and things like that, but a therapeutic solution of just learning to accept oneself is one of the greatest medicines for that.
Yeah, we should ultimately strive to the point where it should, at a certain point, the dialogue shouldn't even just be about self-acceptance. It should be a collective kind of understanding of here's how you should not treat people. You shouldn't, self-acceptance is the first part, but it's also just we present so much of what we want people to represent, of what we want certain people in certain social situations to represent to us, and this. I'm trying not to be too heavy-handed, but there is a right way to put it.
Well, I think one of the things, as you figure out
as I figure it out,
I think one of the problems that does come with that more community-oriented vision of, this is the way we should look at people and not the
word white privilege factors into this somewhere.
Oh no!
Come on!
We will be back, and we've got still a lot more to say.
Yeah, we'll figure out all these complex thoughts when we get back, and we should actually probably talk about the record more.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
I think that I shall never see my feet. I think it only proper to end this portion of our discussion with a prayer. Lord, my soul is ripped with riot, incited by my wicked diet. We are what we eat, said a wise old man. And Lord, if that's true, I'm a garbage can. I want to rise on Judgment Day, that's plain. But at my present weight, I'll need a crane. So grant me strength that I may not fall into the clutches of cholesterol. May my flesh with carrot curls be sated, that my soul may be polyunsaturated. And show me the light that I may bear witness to the President's Council on Physical Fitness. At oleomargarine I'll never mutter, for the road to hell is spread with butter. And cream is cursed, and cake is awful, and Satan is hiding in every waffle. Mephistopheles lurks in provolone, the devil is in each slice of bologna, Beelzebub is a chocolate drop, and Lucifer is a lollipop. Give me this day my daily slice, but cut it thin and toast it twice. I beg upon my dimpled knees, deliver me from jujubes. And when my days of trial are done, and my war with malted milks is won, let me stand with the saints in heaven in a shining robe, size 37. I can do it, Lord, if you'll show to me the virtues of lettuce and celery. If you'll teach me the evil of mayonnaise, the sinfulness of hollandaise, and pasta alla milanese, and potatoes alla leonese, and crisp fried chicken from the south. Lord, if you love me, shut my mouth.
Disgusting. Welcome back.
One more time. Welcome back.
No, we're going with the birthday. Damn it. We're disgusting people. By the way,
we've accepted that about ourselves.
Yeah. We understand, that this isn't necessarily a dialogue that is our own. I'm not fat. Kevin's not fat. We don't. This isn't as much of a dialogue that we're part of. So if we've said anything just let us know where we're wrong or what we can say and not say. We're ultimately, and this actually gets to the point that I was saying before. We should all just learn how to be a little bit more aware. I think not sensitive. Sensitive is the wrong word because sensitive can go badly because then you start doing things like dodging around issues. But ultimately, if this is a dialogue that you're more familiar with, please
fill us in.
Let us know. Nobody's obligated to do that. It's also our responsibility to know as much as we can. But ultimately, if you'd like to, we don't have. We're not gonna suddenly react with if you want to talk about that or bring that dialogue.
Exactly. I think it's a matter of just really understanding that, we're saying what we're saying because this is the only perspective we have, and we are entirely open to hearing about your experiences.
Yeah. And we do apologize ahead of time for every other fuckhead who's going to be commenting.
Yeah, pretty much.
Every... oh, God, YouTube comment. Should we be shitting on our commenters this early on? Because we don't really have any.
Yeah, we kind of need them first. I mean, we may end up with a whole group of just amazing people, as unlikely as that could be.
Yeah.
It could possibly happen, and we're shitting on them already.
I know, but it's just sometimes I look at YouTuber things with the Fine Bros, where it's just they use their comments a lot to get suggestions for the next shows, and sometimes some nice feedback, and it's here... There's some that seems to be nice and positive, and then every once in a while, just nope, and it goes wildly wrong really quick.
And I'm really hoping we don't get that.
We love our viewers. We understand that a lot of people who shit post on YouTube things are not, decent or nice people, or even watch the videos most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think it all again ties back to, and it's funny because we can always tie everything back to our material. That's that awareness.
Yeah.
That's that sense of understanding that when you say something, there are ramifications that need to be addressed. So you have to weigh your words and make sure you say what you mean.
As much as it's just you now have to be attached to your actual Google account. I don't think it's added that much accountability. Into it. Because people are just well, sure, they might know this bit of information, but it doesn't matter. They don't care. I can be as racist as I want.
And you can still set up... You can connect all your accounts so they could all be false accounts. And
that wasn't flipping you off.
God. Anyway.
Let's
album.
Let's talk about the content of this. Just as a matter of, as a much more kind of straightforward analysis, this was fucking great. And I think what makes that opening bit so great is that it's personal, it's him, it speaks so much to what he is, it's so conversational, and you don't realize you're listening to something that has poetic verse. It's almost as if he just starts off talking and then he slips into the poetic verse so stealthily and so casually.
And there were times when I was listening where I had to go back and re-listen because I was thinking, did he just rhyme something? Was that in a...
was that poetic or was he just talking to us?
Exactly.
And I think that he might have picked, and I don't know enough about rhyming schemes, I think he really picked his rhyming schemes to be able to fit with and... I'll say get away with doing something that amazing.
And he studied Shakespeare. He was a very...
He was a real, serious, incredible actor.
He served in part of the Shakespearean troupe in San Diego, doing the Globe Theater there.
Which is amazing if you ever get the chance to go. If you live in Southern California, go. It's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so his understanding of flow, like iambic pentameter, comes with experience. And I think, to continue forward, not to stick too long on that, I think he pulls in a lot of personal elements into his writing. Again, his weight, his artistic background, also his lifestyle choices, and probably what that had to do with a lot with growing up. he uses a lot of religious reference.
Yeah, I was about to cut into that too.
Yeah, and not necessarily in the sense of he's cutting at religion or
But he uses the iconography and the language and like specifically like very like Catholic kinds of stuff, which admittedly I'm only familiar with by proxy, but
I know bits here and there, but he has a couple of sections that have drawn it very closely. He talks about prayers, Hail Marys. He has a full bit that is, does it actually call it here? Bless Me Doctor.
yes,
And
Bless Me Doctor was so good.
It's literally a confessional to the doctor, or at least how it feels to go into a doctor's office and, talk about everything he's eaten for the week, how it feels like being in a confessional. And it's a very, very fantastic bit because it keeps referencing like, oh, the devil tempted me with cheesecake and he ate diet bread in order to fight the temptation. And it just goes on.
2 loaves of diet bread.
Yes.
But what makes it work so well is he's talking about he was at, the Scripps Clinic and that it was at it was basically he went in, the doctor said, you're really healthy, just like go on a diet just to kind of like preserve and take care of yourself. Which also, just as a little side thing, being fat does not make you not healthy. So let's get that bullshit out of the way right now. But basically just saying like watch yourself, eat properly, do control what you eat and things like that. But this speaks, I think, beyond his whole fat thing, and this is where I relate the most to, where it's just like, oh, he has a really shitty diet too. And he's kind of just like, oh, I know it's bad, I know it's this, which is why he's treating his conversation with his doctor as if he was going to a confessional and talking to a priest and, dealing with a dialogue of like God and sin when he's just, talking about
and the way he goes
foods.
Yeah, and the way he goes about it too, it makes sense. He's relating that experience and making it so personal that you really understand his experience.
He's relating Catholic shame to food shame.
Yeah, exactly. It's just taking all of your shame and rolling into a big ball of shame. Shame.
It's really good. My favorite bit is definitely the lovers bit, which we went over before, but I love that one just because it's sexy. It's funny, but you never like the way he sets it up. It's not just he's being goofy by calling his lover brisket or something like that. It's just like, no, here's a man who loves food so much that it's just like he really does earnestly view all those other nicknames as being kind of when I say pizza, I mean you poopsie, and I'm talking about you poopsie, and it's just like. It's that
hot.
Idea.
It's that idea that it's not corny or punny. These are his terms of endearment. That if he really
these are the things he
you,
loves. So when he says them as a part of his poetic verse, they're said with the kind of love and emphasis that they need to. Like
my hot pastrami mommy.
My hot pastrami mommy, which I want to use so badly in any context.
One of these days.
But I don't think it'll ever happen, and that makes me very sad.
I
like pastrami.
Oh my god. But I would like to see a time where you could use a reference like that and people would get where you got it from, because he's worth that time and effort to understand.
I wonder how big this record was. That was something we couldn't really figure out, was like...
It's, in terms of how much online history there is about this album, it's pretty non-existent, and that's a problem we've faced often with our program here.
But even his Wikipedia page doesn't. There's nothing there.
It's more about his artistic work on screen, and this,
which makes up the bulk of his life.
Yes, but the thing is that this feels like a project that would have continued, that he would have had more records.
Well, this is so personal. It's so his own, and it other than the fact that there's some slight repetitive elements, but it might just be him going. He goes back to the sort of God and food theme a couple times over. I think in another one,
Your Fat Man's Prayer.
It might have been Fat Man's Prayer, which is it's another kind of thing. He says Satan in every waffle, which is which is I think a really, really great turn of phrase. There's Satan in every waffle. But other than some slight repetitive tendencies, it's so good, and you see like, oh, here's Victor Buono, the actor, doing something fun for himself, but also to entertain people. What we should talk about is one of the things I like listening to this is the space he's recording this in, the room.
It's very intimate.
It's very intimate. You can tell it's not a big crowd, but you can hear everyone who's laughing, and they're just like cackling, getting really into it. But it's just like,
I gotta admit, there's some pretty obnoxious laughter.
Oh, there's some pretty obnoxious laughs, but I like those little details of it. It's not like, oh, you know what? It's the antithesis of some of the other comedy records we listen to, like How to Be a Jewish Mother, where it's like this constructed radio thing and everyone's clapping, and it's like having an applause sign.
It felt very forced.
Right. And it's like, I understand the purpose of all of that, but it's just like, this is so clubby, it's so intimate, it's so close. He's directly communicating with his audience, and you feel better listening to it as a record as a result. Like, I get a better feeling from this by just hearing like little laughs and things like that. I'm kind of reminded of Mitch Hedberg.
Okay.
Not specifically Mitch Hedberg in his humor, but one of his records he talks about, like, how there's one person in the audience who like has like a particular laugh that and it's just like, oh, special laugh, didn't think that was funny. I don't think it's exactly what he says, but the idea being, it's like you're the person who laughs the loudest to the person who has the most unique laugh and stuff like that. That lends a lot to the listenability of this.
The candid nature of being in an environment, a club environment, where you can acknowledge that.
And as a result, it makes this even feel more natural. Like, I think that's a big thing, is that for how constructed it is as a piece, and it most likely is, it speaks to his talent as an actor, it speaks to his talent as a writer, as a comic mind, that he might not necessarily be a stand-up comedian, but this is a funny, intimate, like, kind of warm performance.
Exactly. And I think, to kind of bookend off of that, I think it's interesting is as strong of flow and comedic timing and integrity he has. The last 3 tracks of the second side are
really confusing.
They're confusing. The first one is You Don't Have to Be Fat to Hate Rome, which really comes out of left field, that he has a whole section just about like why Rome sucks. And
it's really good.
It's good, but
there's nothing wrong with it.
When it comes to an album that's all about his weight and acceptance and his experiences, I can see, yes, he apparently went to Rome and didn't have that great of a time, but it's literally almost comes off as kind of like cheeky, with just being like, those Romans there. I think one of the lines is, it's Bakersfield with pizza sauce. And it's like, that is harsh. But more so than that one is the piece I Am and New Gig, which when you're listening to the album flow together, so you can't.
It doesn't feel like 2 pieces, yeah.
And it's I mean, to put it simply, one is the story of an abortion.
Yeah, I think it's a story about an abortion, and it's just kind of like, is this an anti-abortion piece? I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it literally just the story of an abortion? I mean, I'm guessing it might be an anti-abortion piece. He talks about, like, it's from the perspective of a fetus.
I don't even know if you want to call it a fetus. Like, it's literally like, it's trying to say, like, it's going through self-awareness. It has a moment of I am, and what is I am, and it goes on to, it starts developing, hands and feet, and says, like, I'm going to be this one day, and I'm a boy because I know that I like bugs and things, and I don't even know what bugs are. And then just all of a sudden, right in the middle of that, it just says,
it's like, my mother killed me today, and it's just like, all right.
And ends with that, and goes right into the second piece.
Well, because it talks about, like like, I'm not dead, I'm not alive, what is this place? And then something about, and then the saints go marching in.
The gates of heaven open, and the angels give a golden horn, and all of a sudden it just goes into a reference to Satchmo.
Yeah.
And there's...
And I like that last little bit on its own, but it's just sort of like, okay, so I Am is supposed to lead into New Gig. There's too much, like, there's that, there's the death, there's that, like, it transitions too well to be super separate, but they're still listed as separate tracks.
And on top of that, compared to how much flow there is through the rest of the album, the fact that those three and those two in particular are a very sudden change in tone and kind of lack that continuation that the audience perspective really can identify to versus his, where I'm sure when he was writing it all made more sense.
Yeah.
But just on our side, being the listener, it's jarring to go through that.
It is.
Especially when it's not what you're expecting.
Also, especially when he comes off of something that was like as funny and as high energy as You Don't Have to Be Fat in Rome, considering most of I Am is actually quite funny too in its own right.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a wonderful piece. It's just the choice of ending it that way and rolling those two together, just it doesn't fit with the rest of the album.
It's not bad, but it's kind of like odd and out of place a little bit.
I would almost prefer those to be a part of another album.
Yeah.
If he were to talk about his beliefs, or if he were to go through a deeper perspective and suss out the details of these two in a way that make them a much more interesting and enticing storyline. And it's just almost unfortunate that they were thrown onto the end of this, because I almost feel like in the recording, like it feels like there's a break between these ones where it just kind of goes silent, like it was almost like an added on piece.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it was meant to just fill in the rest of that time or something, because I don't want them to be there, not because I don't like them, but because it takes away from the rest of the album.
It does. I mean, I'm gonna say that actually, if he had ended on "You Don't Have to Be Fat to Hate Rome," it would have been like, it's a little out of place, but that's a pretty good.
It's an acceptable way of saying. It's acceptable,
but he still talks about like all the thematic elements of like food and stuff like that. But it literally goes to every joke about being himself, his weight, his size, his interaction with the world and the universe around him. You know, God and the devil and Satan being in waffles. And it goes into, he's just like, so I love Italy. My family's from Italy. Italy's great. Rome is shit.
Pretty much.
And it's just like, even the title, You Don't Have to Be Fat to Hate Rome. Like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't bring up being fat in the bit.
He references food a couple times.
Yeah,
he
but
ends
like,
on the line of "That's the way the pizza crumbles," which, I mean, I think there's maybe 3 other references to food in the whole thing.
Yeah, but they're all appropriate within context. But literally, just like if you were to remove it and have it as a funny thing on its own, you just be like, yes, you talk about food when you're in Italy. I'm assuming I would.
I mean,
I view traveling as what am I going to eat.
Food is an important part of
food is an important part of cultural travel and understanding other people. So eat food, everybody.
The more you know.
The more you know. Yeah, but it's a good record. You should seek it out if you can find it. I don't know if it's available online.
That is not something we actually did the research on like we normally do.
Normally we do. I'm wondering, should we? Maybe I should just stall. Let's talk
about
it. I can do a dance if you want to see me do a dance. If you want to see me do a dance, I can just talk really fast and look directly at the camera. Look at me. Look at me.
Summarize the whole thing.
Summarize the whole thing.
Yeah, you're gonna do.
I was gonna do a bit of a breakdown on this record. Right. It is a really good record. You should listen to it. I Am and New Gig are a bit confusing. You Don't Have to Be Fat to Hate Rome doesn't really fit, but it's still really funny. But the rest of this is just incredible, and he's such a wonderful performer, and it's such a wonderful performance. And it's so direct because of how bluntly he starts, because of how poetic he is, but the poetry is very accessible. And it's him. Anything that is so personal like this is just automatically very appealing to me. It's again why I really liked I Am the Greatest. And it's the thing I'm least looking forward to about when we get to Alan Sherman records eventually. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. I have 2 Alan Sherman records that I've listened to and I'm not thrilled about, but we're going to do them anyway because it's our show.
Yeah.
Were you able to find any information?
Yes, it is available on iTunes. So please go check it out. Even if you just pick up one track. I would say if you pick up one track, either...
I'm Fat. Actually,
as a good opener,
yeah.
Or I'd say Bless Me Doctor, because
Bless Me Doctor, yeah.
The flow of that is worth 99 cents at minimum.
Oh man, I'm kind of wondering if we should put Bless Me Doctor, but I'm Fat such a good opener.
I feel like as an opener, it works really well with the way we open the show.
Yeah, that's true. So we're sticking with I'm Fat as the opener?
Yes.
Okay. Have a good one. We love all of you. See you next time. And
take care. Take some time to go and visit your local record shop and see what kind of crazy stuff you can find. That's the sound
Perfectly
of us
timed.
being done.
All right.
Off, I say.
Man, I was gonna go do, but that's stealing from Nardwar, and that would
we can't do that.
We can't do that.
We
That'd
can't
be
have
really
a
shitty.
burrito. We can't have a day or have a week.
We can't talk about how did this get made. That was a real big fucking stretch. Have a good night.
Peace. I don't even know
Scene.
why. Why peace?
All right. I'm gonna get going.
I have some skinny poems for fat lovers. I see her now beside the fountain. I am Muhammad, and here come the mountain. We met beside the hangar, and we flew away to heaven. She's my little Hindenburg, and I'm a 747. You can laugh. Go ahead. Some of the things you skinny people call your low-cal lovelies are just as funny. Pussycat, bunny rabbit. Some men call the girl they love their chickadee or turtle dove and other birdie names I find revolting. The things that names like these suggest dine on bugs, live in nests, and scratch for worms when they're not busy molting. And pussycats and bunny rabbits have distressing social habits. Lambs and ducks are sweet, but spoil the lawn. But I'm not one to criticize. Lovers see through filtered eyes. If they dig pink eyes, fangs, and fleas, right on. My sweetheart's not at all like all the rest. She's much more like the things I like the best. She's my brisket of beauty, my pretty pink parfait, my tenderloin of tenderness, my passionate pate. Her mouth is like a cherry, small and sweet. Her cheeks are apples, firm and fresh and red. In her complexion, cream and peaches meet. My Tootsie has a tutti-frutti head. My canapé, cafe au lait, and crown rib roast so regal. My barbecue and fondue, too. My hash, the kind that's legal. She's the leavening of loveliness that makes my spirits rise. She's basic and wholesome as stew. When I look in her eyes, I see blueberry pies. When I say pizza, poopsie, I mean you. She's as peaceful as a pickle and as rich as pumpernickel and as happy as salami. She's my hot pastrami, mommy. Heaven sent me as her lover. This is just so darn much of her. She's my manna a la mode sent from above. Together we're an automat of love.
That's all, brother, that's all.
And that's the end of the episode.
Thank you very much for sticking around and watching the whole thing.
like, subscribe, comment, click down below the thingy,
Exactly. And then click the other thing for the other thingy.
and then watch our other videos, and then watch the next video, and watch the last video. So watch our things.
We promise they're very similar, but very enjoyable.
Have a good one. Bye.
That's all, brother, that's all.